we're back talking some more I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is the last episode before the finale, episode 7. Pieces are finally coming together for the final episode. After everything that happened with Riley in last week's episode, we ended off with Claire returning to the cave with her body, and Dylan is there too. Afterwards is once things start to get a little bit tricky because we don't really see the follow-up to that conversation in this episode. It's a little frustrating how ambiguous they leave certain details about this whole exchange, but we kind of have an idea of where we're going by the end of this episode and what actually happened. Or I guess you could say you can only hear one side of the story because one of them does end up dying after all. Delve a bit more into seeing more of the weird stuff that Claire did to these bodies, flashing back to the stuff that she did with Lennon's body. And eventually the police end up arriving at the cave and they find Riley there as this statue covered in honey. While that is pretty gross looking, I also do think it is a really cool effect. But also Clara is found dead there as well. Which is sort of an interesting development to the story because I think a lot of people had suspected that she was at least in some shape or form a part of all the killings going around in this town. And you have the streets saying that Clara suffocated herself with honey, which is like some complete BS. I don't think anyone would ever do that. Of course, Dylan is nowhere to be found as he ends up back at Margot's house looking suspicious as ever, saying to Margot and Allison that he escaped the cave, that's how he got out, which, you know, very suspicious. Dylan all around says a lot of weird things throughout this entire episode that I think would be very big red flags if you were like a normal person. And also, he just all around acts a whole lot happier after Clara is dead. Most of this season, he's kind of been like this mopey, quiet, reserved person. And then after these deaths, he's all happy. He actually smiles from time to time. Very out of character. It definitely doesn't help that Allison and Margot's suspicion levels of Dylan are very inconsistent all throughout this episode. Going from crafting this whole entire investigation board on why Dylan's the killer to just kind of accepting him back into the friend group, no questions asked. I know some of these characters haven't been the best all throughout the season so far, but I really would like them to just be consistent with their motivations and the way that they act around different characters. That's all I ask. You know, it's a simple concept, really. One of the storylines I was most intrigued just to see where it would develop in these final 2 episodes is all the drama between Lennon and Allison's real mom, now that we know that she's actually alive and didn't kill herself. I wouldn't really say that it pays off in any shape or form in episode 7 at least, but we do leave off in a place where we can actually have some cool stuff in the final episode. As her and Allison talk on the phone, but it's not really like a nice conversation or anything because her mom doesn't want to talk to her or even hear about anything that has to do with her. And we also hear a whole other kid in the background, so she's kind of just said, screw these kids, I got a whole new family, don't talk to me. But of course she does show up at the end of the episode, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there. After the dust is settled once Claire passed away, I did think it was really sweet that we had this big mass funeral for all the people that have been killed throughout the season. Riley, Johnny, Officer Cruz, many others along the way. Some of the details in this part of the episode didn't really feel needed. We see Margot goes off to therapy rehab for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then we cut to 3 weeks later when everybody's back together once again. We don't really need that. It just seems like an odd time jump to me. It's not like how in the beginning of the show where we had a 1 year later gap where everybody comes back to town. It just felt kind of random just have a 3 weeks later time lapse. I guess perhaps maybe it was to signify that everything has kind of returned back to normal. Bruce is still having sex with that cop. Everybody seems to be moving on with their lives. It's actually kind of nice, I guess, in a way to see all of them return to having these fun things at this carnival. And we unfortunately fall back into the trappings of the show that I'm not a big fan of when it comes to the romantic tension between Dylan and Allison. They end up hooking up, of course. And it goes on for quite a while, too. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to feel as an audience member because I don't really like Dylan, and Allison also has kind of been kind of shady, especially the fact that she's faking who she is the entire season. During all this, we also cut to Margot masturbating in bed to one of the old videos that we saw on OnlyFans, which also just, what the hell? I'm very surprised that it took until episode 7 for Allison to finally reveal that she's Allison and not Lennon, but we do finally get a reveal as Allison tells Dylan that she's actually Allison and not Lennon. I'm not really sure timing-wise this is the time to reveal that after you've had sex. I think Dylan reacted pretty much how anyone would react in that situation. You would just freak out completely. The line that Dylan says as he's leaving angry, though, is the one that catches my eye when he's like, all the stuff that he did because of you. So that leads me to believe that he definitely did everything in this season. Maybe in some way this was his way of getting revenge. Of course, I don't know. It's all just speculation at this point. We don't really know the answers in this episode. We inevitably end up cutting back to Margot at her house. She's looking for snacks. I guess there was a lot of strenuous work up there. But we do see that the killer is there. She doesn't die, though. She gets pushed through this glass door. She gets to the hospital. But she's not dead. So that's, I guess, a good thing. Because I do kind of like Margot, and I want to see her live out of mostly everybody else in this show. It does make me wonder why the killer didn't kill Margot, just pushed her through the glass door and then left. As I alluded to earlier on, we do see Bruce actually go and have a conversation with Lennon and Allison's mom, which I think is pretty cool to finally get the mom reveal after after 7 episodes. It's not like we really get a whole lot with them in this episode, but I am intrigued to see just what they talk about in the finale. The final scene in this episode is definitely one I think we're going to be speculating a whole lot about in the comments section, as Dylan is at the police station. He's going to talk with somebody about something. We don't really know what, though. Is he going to admit some sort of involvement in the murders that are going on right now, the murder that happened last year, or just the simple fact that Allison is actually the one that's alive right now? So if that's the case, Alice, you absolutely played yourself here. But make sure you share your thoughts down below. What did you think of this new episode and now what you did last summer in episode 7? Did you like the episode, not like the episode? Also share all your thoughts and theories as we're heading into the finale next week. It's pretty crazy that we're already at the finale episode. But thank you guys for always sharing my reviews. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Until next time, though, I'll see you guys later.